At 48, Monica had numbers she never said out loud. $8,000 in credit card debt, 3 late car payments, $47 in her purse, and a fear so constant it felt stitched into her skin. She wasn't dreaming about vacations, luxury, or some glamorous second act. She was praying her body wouldn't give out before her bills did. For 25 years, she worked the front desk at a tired motel on the edge of Las Vegas, under fluorescent lights that made every evening feel like a sentence. She smiled at strangers, solved other people's emergencies, and went home carrying a silence so heavy, it felt louder than any scream. If you've ever stared at a bill and felt your chest tighten, you already know this kind of exhaustion. On paper, Monica was surviving. In reality, she was one broken transmission, one hospital visit, one missed paycheck away from collapse. No savings, no safety net. 2 grown daughters struggling to stay afloat themselves. And beneath all of it, one private terror she never confessed to anyone. What happens to a woman when life has taken everything except her ability to keep pretending she's fine? Then came that Thursday evening. The desert heat was merciless. Her feet ached, and shame sat in her chest like wet cement as she walked toward a bus stop with crumpled bills in her purse, and no real plan for tomorrow. She thought she was heading home. She had no idea she was walking straight toward the moment that would divide her life into before and after. On the metal bench sat an older woman with silver hair, still hands, and the kind of peace that makes broken people suspicious. She took one look at Monica and said, "That sigh is heavier than your bag." Monica almost laughed, almost cried. Then the woman leaned in and whispered 7 words that felt impossible, dangerous, and strangely alive. "Come back tomorrow. I'll show you how to wake up." If you are watching this with unpaid bills on the table, with a knot in your stomach, with that quiet fear that maybe you waited too long to fix your finances, this story is for you. Not for the version of you that smiles in public and says, "I'm fine." I'm talking to the version of you who lies awake at night doing math in the dark, wondering how life became this heavy. Because this is not just a story about money. It is a story about what happens when a woman gets tired of living like her future has already been decided. It is about the invisible exhaustion so many women carry after 45. When the world starts moving faster, the bills get louder, the body gets more honest, and the mistakes of the past begin to feel permanent. And let me tell you this before we begin. This is not a fantasy about instant wealth. No lottery ticket, no miracle investment, no fake guru promising you riches by next week. This is about something deeper than money and stronger than motivation. It is about the moment a woman stops leaking her power in silence and starts taking her life back one decision at a time. So before we go any further, take a second to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and comment where you're watching from. Tell me your country and city, or your city and state if you're in the United States. I love seeing where this community of strong, rebuilding women is growing. Now stay with me until the end because Monica's transformation did not begin with confidence. It began with exhaustion, shame, resistance, and one conversation that sounded too simple to matter until it changed everything. Monica felt like her life had been frozen at the worst possible moment. Not at the beginning of a disaster, not at the end of one, in the middle, that cruel middle where everything still looks normal enough from the outside. But inside something is already breaking. She was 48 years old and living in a 1-bedroom apartment in North Las Vegas with peeling paint, a stubborn kitchen faucet, and a silence that seemed to grow heavier each year. She had spent more than 2 decades working the front desk at a roadside motel, just far enough from the strip to feel forgotten by the city, but close enough to collect all of its leftovers. The shifts were long. The guests were unpredictable. The pay never stretched the way it was supposed to. By the end of each month, her checking account looked like a battlefield. Her credit card was drowning under $8,000 of debt. Her old sedan was 3 months behind on payments. Her lower back throbbed every morning before her feet even touched the floor. And the thought that haunted her most was not poverty itself. It was becoming a burden. Her daughters were grown now. One was 30 and dealing cards at a casino 3 nights a week. The other was 25, waitressing double shifts and still running short on rent before the month was over. Monica loved them deeply, but love had become tangled with rescue, and rescue had become its own kind of trap. That Thursday, after another shift under those flickering lights, she walked toward the bus stop with $47 in her purse and the kind of exhaustion that settles into the bones. $15 had to go into the gas tank. Some of the rest would vanish into fast food because cooking for one felt emotionally expensive. And whatever was left would be thrown toward the minimum payment on a credit card balance that never seemed to move no matter how faithfully she fed it. When she reached the bench, an older woman was already there. She wore a pale blue blouse, carried a worn canvas tote, and sat with her hands folded as if she had made peace with time itself. Monica had seen her before around the neighborhood, always walking alone, always unhurried. Monica dropped onto the far end of the bench and let out a sigh before she could stop it. The woman turned slightly and said, "That sigh sounds like it's been waiting years to come out." Monica flushed. "Sorry. Rough day." The woman smiled softly. "No, honey. Rough life." Something inside Monica cracked at the sound of that. Maybe it was the heat. Maybe it was the humiliation of being seen so quickly. Maybe it was the fact that no one had asked how she was doing in a way that sounded like they truly wanted the answer. "I'm tired," Monica whispered. "Tired in a way sleep doesn't fix." The woman nodded. "At 48, I was exactly where you are. Divorced. 2 girls. Debt everywhere. No savings. Terrified of the future and pretending I was fine." Monica looked at her more carefully now. This woman did not look rich. She looked anchored. "What changed?" Monica asked. "Did somebody leave you money?" The woman laughed, warm and low. "Better. Someone taught me the 7-day rule." Monica almost rolled her eyes. She had seen too much nonsense online to fall for another miracle promise. Money hacks, overnight success stories, gurus selling hope in expensive packaging. The woman seemed to read her face. "I'm not talking about becoming rich in 7 days," she said. "I'm talking about waking up, truly waking up. Most women don't have a money problem first. They have a fog problem. 7 days can clear the fog." The bus pulled up in a blast of heat and diesel. The woman stood, adjusted her tote, and said, "Tomorrow, 6 in the evening, Fremont Park, same bench. If you want pity, stay home. If you want change, come ready to do exactly what I say." Then she stepped onto the bus and disappeared. Monica stood on the sidewalk long after the doors closed. For the first time in months, maybe years, her mind was louder than her fear. What if this was ridiculous? What if it wasn't? That night, Monica did not sleep. She lay on top of her sheets, staring at the water stain above her bed, listening to the refrigerator hum in the kitchen and the occasional sound of traffic below. Her apartment felt like a waiting room for a life that had never started. She got up twice to check the locks. She opened her banking app once, then shut it immediately. She imagined herself 10 years older, working the same desk, with the same pain in her spine, the same debt, the same panic, the same emergency always waiting just around the corner. What frightened her was not disaster. It was repetition. By 5:30 the next evening, she was walking toward Fremont Park with the stubborn, suspicious hope of a woman who had been disappointed too many times to trust possibility without feeling foolish. The older woman was already there. "My name is Evelyn," she said. "Monica." Evelyn nodded once. "Good. You came. That means a part of you still believes your life is not over." Monica sat down. "I'm here. Now what?" Evelyn reached into her tote, pulled out a used notebook and a pencil and placed them in Monica's hands. "Day 1, she said. "Face the truth." Monica frowned. "The truth is, I don't make enough." Evelyn shook her head. "That may be true, but it is not the whole truth. The whole truth is usually more uncomfortable." She leaned closer. "Tonight, you are going to write down every dollar you spent over the last week, every coffee, every drive-through meal, every convenience store stop, every cigarette, every app subscription, Every little thing that disappears because you are too tired to question it. Monica stiffened. The instruction felt invasive, even though it was her own money, her own life. I already know where it goes, she said. Evelyn's expression did not move. No, you know the story you tell yourself about where it goes. That's not the same thing. The words landed harder than Monica wanted to admit. Write it all down, Evelyn said. And tomorrow, bring me the page. If you do not, don't come back. That night, Monica sat at her kitchen table with the notebook open and the pencil pressed too hard between her fingers. At first she wrote with irritation. Gas, fast food, coffee. Then the list started growing teeth. Morning coffee and a pastry on the way to work. Cigarettes. Snacks from the vending machine. Streaming services she barely used. Tiny convenience purchases that felt harmless alone but looked sinister together. By the time she finished adding everything up, Monica stared at the number as if it belonged to someone else. She had spent almost $250 in a single week on things that calmed, distracted, numbed, or rewarded her for surviving. The room went very still. That was not just money. That was emergency fund money, car payment money, breathing room money. And somehow, without ever deciding to, she had been feeding it to habits that gave her relief by the hour and robbed her by the month. She pressed her hand over her mouth. For the first time, her problem looked less like a curse and more like a pattern. And patterns, unlike curses, can be broken. The next evening, Monica handed Evelyn the crumpled notebook page like evidence in a trial. Evelyn studied it in silence. Then she said, "Good. Now choose your battle." Monica waited. Pick 3 things from this list that are not keeping you alive. Only 3. Cross them out. For the next 5 days, you do not buy them. No exceptions. Monica looked down. Her throat tightened almost immediately. The morning coffee and pastry were not just coffee and pastry. They were ritual, reward. The feeling of being cared for, even if only by a paper cup and a sugar rush. The cigarettes were not just cigarettes. They were her little pause button between demands. The streaming subscriptions were not just subscriptions. They were sedation, a way to stop thinking at night. I can't do all that at once, Monica said. Evelyn's voice stayed calm. You are not being asked to do it forever. You are being asked to tell the truth about what owns you. Monica stared at the page. Then, with hands that felt unsteady, she crossed out 3 things: coffee and pastry, cigarettes, streaming. The second the pencil lifted off the paper, she felt grief. Not because she had lost something precious, because she had just realized how little she had been using to keep herself going. The third day was ugly. No inspiring music, no graceful breakthrough, just withdrawal wearing ordinary clothes. Her head pounded before noon. She stood behind a woman carrying a giant iced coffee and felt a sharp, irrational resentment. By mid-afternoon, all she could think about was a cigarette. When she reached the park, she was almost angry enough to leave. This is miserable, she snapped. I feel worse, not better. Evelyn let her talk until the heat had burned itself out. Then she asked one question. How much have you not spent? Monica blinked. She had not done the math. She pulled out the notebook, added quickly, and looked up in surprise. Almost $40. Evelyn smiled. There it is. Day 3. Plant the proof. She pulled a plain white envelope from her bag. Put the money in here. Write something on the front. Like what? Something your tired self cannot argue with. Monica thought for a second, then wrote in thick letters, This is how I come back. That night, she slid the money into the envelope and tucked it into the highest kitchen cabinet, behind an old casserole dish she never used. It was not much, but it felt different from all the money she had ever handled before. This money had direction. By the 4th day, the cravings had not disappeared, but they had lost some of their power. The coffee smell outside the gas station still tugged at her, but now it felt less like a command and more like a test. At the bench, Evelyn said. Today is not about subtraction. It's about replacement. Monica listened. You cannot build a better life by only taking things away. Empty spaces pull old habits back in. You must put something stronger in their place. She broke it down simply. Brew coffee at home and carry it in a travel mug. When the cigarette craving hits, step outside and walk briskly for 5 minutes. When loneliness starts begging for a screen, listen to stories of women who rebuilt their lives or read something that stretches your mind instead of numbing it. Monica sighed. I don't even own a decent travel mug. Evelyn lifted an eyebrow. How much would one cost? Monica thought about the discount aisle at Walmart. Not much. Then buy the mug, Evelyn said. That is not spending. That is redirecting. That sentence stayed with Monica all evening. That night she bought a cheap travel mug and set it beside her coffee maker like it was part of a ceremony. The next morning, she made coffee in her own kitchen before sunrise. When she took the first sip at the bus stop, she nearly cried. Not because it tasted better, because it tasted like agency. On the 5th day, Monica arrived early. She sat on the bench before Evelyn got there, rolling coins between her fingers, looking more awake than she had in years. I got a tip at work, she said when Evelyn sat down. Extra money, and I didn't spend it. Evelyn's face softened. That matters more than you know. Then her expression sharpened again. Today is the hard one, she said. Today you practice a full sentence that saves lives. Monica laughed nervously. Whose life? Yours. Evelyn looked directly at her. Somebody is going to ask you for money soon. Maybe one of your daughters. Maybe a friend. Maybe someone who knows you always say yes. When it happens, you will say this. I'm getting my finances in order, and I can't help right now. No long explanation, no guilt performance, no rescuing. Monica's stomach dropped. My oldest asks me for rent money all the time. That is exactly why this matters. Monica stared at the ground. I'm her mother. Evelyn nodded. Yes, you are her mother, not her emergency fund. That night, the phone rang. Her oldest daughter sounded breathless, embarrassed, defensive before Monica had even answered. Mom, I'm short on rent again. Can you send $200 through Cash App? Just until next week. The old Monica rose instantly inside her, automatic as muscle memory. Find a way, shift a bill, skip groceries, save her. But another voice, newer and quieter, stood up too. Monica closed her eyes and said, I love you, but I'm getting my finances in order and I can't help right now. Silence. Then came anger, shock, accusation. You always help. What changed? Monica's hand trembled, but her voice did not. That is exactly the problem, she said. I always help, and none of us are getting stronger. After the call ended, she expected guilt to flatten her. Instead, something else moved through her chest. Not hardness, self-respect. A woman can live a long time without it and still function. But the moment it returns even a little, the whole body knows. By the 6th day, Monica was no longer walking like a woman being chased by her own life. Something subtle had shifted. Her shoulders were still tired, her feet still sore, but the defeated drag in her body had begun to disappear. She was standing straighter now, as if some invisible weight had finally loosened its grip around her spine. When Evelyn saw her crossing the park, she smiled before Monica even sat down. You look different, Evelyn said. Monica let out a small laugh. I feel different, not fixed, just less helpless. Evelyn nodded slowly. Good, because day 6 is where most women finally understand something dangerous. Monica looked at her. What? That they are more valuable than the paycheck they've been settling for. The words hit Monica with unusual force. All her life, she had thought of herself in terms of endurance. She was the one who covered shifts, calmed angry guests, stretched groceries, rescued her daughters, and kept going even when she was empty. But value? That word belonged to other people. Younger women, polished women. Women with businesses, websites, confidence, and clean manicures. Not women with aching backs and overdue balances. Evelyn studied her face and saw the doubt immediately. "Listen to me carefully," she said. "You have spent years doing valuable things for low pay simply because someone else put a name tag on your labor and called it normal. That doesn't mean it's all you're worth." Monica stayed quiet. "You run a front desk in chaos," Evelyn continued. "You solve problems fast, you know how to deal with people. You clean better than most professionals. And I would bet anything your cooking has fed half the people in your family through hard times. Those are not small things. Those are skills. Skills create income." Monica swallowed hard. "I wouldn't even know where to start." "You start ugly," Evelyn said. "You start imperfect. You start before you feel ready." That afternoon, Monica sat in her car outside her apartment for 10 full minutes before sending a message to a coworker who was always complaining about finding reliable help. "If you ever need someone to clean on Saturdays, I'm available." She stared at the message after hitting send, suddenly flushed with panic. It felt too bold, too exposed, too much like asking life to reject her directly. But 20 minutes later, the reply came. "Actually, yes. My sister needs help this weekend." "Are you serious?" Monica read the message twice, then 3 times. Then she placed a hand over her mouth and cried quietly in the driver's seat, not because the job was huge, but because something inside her had just cracked open. For the first time in years, money had not come only from exhaustion, it had come from initiative. The next morning, while putting away groceries, her downstairs neighbor mentioned how hard it was to cook for her sons who worked late shifts at the casino. Monica hesitated, then heard Evelyn's voice in her mind. "Use what you already know." Almost shyly, she said, "I could make a few trays for them if you want." By evening, she had her first small food order. It was not glamorous. It was not a business empire. It was enchiladas in foil pans and a cleaning job on a Saturday morning. But to Monica, it felt enormous, because day 6 was not really about making more money. It was about no longer seeing herself as a woman whose only option was to endure. On the 7th day, Monica brought Evelyn to a small diner with laminated menus, strong coffee, and the scent of butter on toast. She insisted on paying. Not with borrowed money. Not with guilt money. Not with money that should have gone to a bill. With conscious money. Money that had been protected on purpose. Money that represented a decision. She pulled out the white envelope, now thicker than before, and laid it gently on the table. "I saved money this week," she said, almost in disbelief. "Real money. And I booked work for the weekend. I made food for a neighbor. I didn't buy the things that used to empty me out. I said no. I actually said no." Evelyn did not look surprised. She looked pleased in the way teachers do when a student finally sees what was always possible. "So," Monica said, leaning forward, "what is the 7-day rule really?" Evelyn smiled. "It isn't 1 rule, it is 7. She counted them slowly like something sacred. Face the truth. Cut what weakens you. Save proof of change. Replace the habit, not just the expense. Say no without apology. Use your skills to create income. And most important, understand that this was never only about money." Monica sat very still. Evelyn's eyes held hers. Money follows identity more often than people want to admit. For years, you were living as a woman in emergency mode. This week you began acting like a woman with standards, direction, and a future. That changes everything. Then Evelyn reached into her tote and handed Monica a fresh notebook. Track every dollar for the next 6 months, not to punish yourself, to witness yourself. Watch what happens when a woman finally stops abandoning her own life. Monica held the notebook like it weighed more than paper. "Why are you doing this for me?" she asked softly. Evelyn looked out the window for a long moment before answering. "Because years ago I sat on a bench convinced my life was already over. Another woman found me there and taught me this. Before she left, she made me promise that if I ever made it to the other side, I would come back for someone else. Monica felt tears rise fast and hot. Evelyn reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "Now one day," she said, "that promise will belong to you." 6 months changed the texture of Monica's life, not because she became wealthy, because she became deliberate. She built an emergency fund that finally let her breathe. She knocked out her smaller debts one by one, and with each payment, a different kind of weight left her shoulders. Her weekend cleaning work became steady. Her meal prep side income grew by word of mouth. Women at the motel started asking what she was doing differently because she looked calmer, clearer, stronger. She still worked hard. Her back still hurt sometimes. Life did not become magical. But the fear that once sat on her chest every night no longer ran the house. One evening, near sunset, Monica found herself back at Fremont Park. She sat on the same metal bench where she had once arrived with $47, a defeated posture, and a nervous system stretched thin as wire. A woman sat down at the other end, maybe 46, maybe 52. Tired eyes, fast breathing, purse clutched too tightly. After a long silence, the woman let out a sigh that sounded like it had been aging for years. Monica turned, studied her gently, and said the words that had once opened a door for her. "That sigh sounds heavier than your bag." The woman looked over, startled, and Monica, with a calm she had earned the hard way, smiled and made room on the bench.